Hi, my name is Art Menna, and I'm running for President of the United States as an independent candidate. I'd like to share an experience with you that I had this morning while visiting family here in Texas. And for the record, today's date is Wednesday, April 10th, 2024. Anyway, so I woke up this morning, and one of my family members came to me and said, Art, you have to call into this radio station, KLBJ. They're doing a segment on why Trump will become a dictator, or why we believe Trump will become a dictator if he's elected. He says, you got to call in. These guys are pretty good. I think you'll agree on a number of things, but there are a few things you'll disagree with. But these guys are pretty good. I said, great. I'd love to have that conversation. In fact, I said that actually the question should be, why is Trump a dictator, not why will he become a dictator? So I called into the radio station, and son of a gun, I got on the air. And it happened to be right after a segment they were doing on how the Democrats perpetuated the Russian collusion theory into the 2016 elections. So I began by saying how much I agreed with their comments that was absolutely bogus and did harm to the country, and also the press looked pretty stupid for perpetuating that eventually debunked collusion theory. And so then I started into why I think that their question should be, why is Trump a dictator? And tried to give a little history of myself as having worked 20 years in the Pentagon during 4 administrations. So having firsthand experience on how different administrations work, especially firsthand experience on how things were during the Trump administration. So anyway, I did mention that I was running for president as an independent candidate, and that I was fed up with both the Democrats and the Republicans on what they were doing to our country. And so, of course, he's trying to rush me along. And so I talked about why I think, started trying to talk about why I think Trump is a dictator. So I started by mentioning that I had watched a fantastic documentary that was put out by PBS called The Dictator's Playbook. And so I said so I quickly drew a comparison. I said between Hitler. I said Hitler had his black shirts. He lined himself with the right-wing militia in Germany and used black shirts to do his dirty work for him. And in this case, we have Trump aligning himself with the right-wing militia groups here, and I think as soon as I said something like that, they immediately cut me off. They immediately accused me, asked me who was paying me to be on the show, that I was a plant, and just made all these ugly accusations against me, and then eventually hung up on me. And I did manage to get in. I was trying to, run for president as an independent candidate, and I don't know. Either way, that was very, very disappointing. And in fact, my brother was quite shocked as how I was treated on the radio station. But again, this is the symptom. This is the symptom of what is wrong with our country. Nobody wants to have a conversation. It's all, I'm just going to outshout you, and if you don't agree with me, I'm going to call you all sorts of ugly names, and that's got to stop. And so what I want to take this time is to say what I would have wanted to say while I was on that radio show had they given me the chance, and explain my position. Of course, I'm going to take a lot more time than they would have given me, but I want to go through why I believe Trump is a dictator. And I would welcome a discussion. I would welcome KLBJ if they actually would like to have a civil discussion and talk about some facts and evidence as opposed to just calling each other names. I would welcome a phone call, and I would help welcome a discussion. But in the meantime, let me go through my list of why I think Trump is a dictator. And mind you, when I referenced the PBS documentaries, they were done, I believe, definitely before January 6th, and even probably before Trump's administration. They made no mention of Trump during those documentaries. They also did a separate documentary on Hitler. Again, made no mention of Trump. So I want to make it clear that what I did in watching those documentaries, I actually used my power of critical thinking. That in watching those documentaries, it was becoming very clear to me many parallels that I was recognizing in these dictators and in Hitler that exactly that Donald Trump was doing and that he has done. And that's what I would like to discuss, okay? So, yes, I know, critical thinking for myself, not having someone to tell me what I need to think and what everything means, okay? So, yeah, so I granted, I know this is crazy, but let me tell you what I concluded and why I concluded. So just bear with me, I'm getting a little crazy here. Okay, so one of the things, especially in the Hitler documentary, that I didn't know at the time was that, of course, number one, let me just start. Most dictators use the democratic process to get elected. And then once they're elected, then they proceed to dismantle the democratic institutions that allowed them to be elected so that they can stay in power for life, or as long as they want, or until, again, they get overthrown or assassinated or whatever. So, one of the ways that Hitler got elected and the way he suppressed opposition was through aligning himself with a right-wing militia, not with the military, but with a right-wing militia that at the time was called the Black Shirts. And again, they were a civilian militia. And so the Black Shirts on Hitler's time, they would be the people that would do Hitler's bidding for him. They would go out and suppress opposition through threats, intimidation, and often violence, including murder. I'm not accusing Donald Trump of that yet, but again, the press, in Donald Trump's case, I will argue that what he has done throughout his political career is aligned himself with the right-wing militia here in the United States. And they're the ones that do his dirty work, his bidding for him. So whenever you hear Donald Trump call somebody a name, especially when he says that they don't deserve to live, that they're nothing but dirt, they should be assassinated, that they're criminals, what happens? You get death threats against these people, whether they're election workers, whether they're witnesses to his trial, whether they're to political opponents. The death threats come in. And where do you think those death threats are coming from? They have to, I can only conclude that they are from the right-wing supporters of Trump, militia members and others. Again, a parallel that I'm drawing. Number two, as I mentioned, the dictators, once they get into power, they start dismantling our democratic institutions. What are the three key elements of our democracy? One is public confidence in our election system, public confidence in law enforcement, and public confidence in our justice system. And what has Trump done over the years? I don't think I have to have too much discussion about how he has unfairly condemned our election system and our elections, and has convinced everyone that elections in America are not fair and will never be fair again, especially if he's not president. In fact, he has even made comments. Some people say, oh, they're just off-the-cuff comments, but I think the man is serious when he says this next election probably is the last election that this country needs to have. And so you need to take comments like that very, very seriously. Again, that's what dictators do. Let's talk about law enforcement. Oh, wow, the FBI is investigating him. FBI has good reason to investigate him. FBI is doing their job. In fact, I would argue that after January 6th, the FBI wanted no part of trying to prosecute or investigate Trump. Unfortunately, between Trump's actions with his mishandling of classified information and storing boxes in his bathroom, which he refused after repeated attempts, refused to turn over to the FBI, what happened? The FBI had to go in with a search warrant and confiscate those documents. And what did Trump do? Oh my goodness, the FBI is an enemy of the United States. They are been weaponized by the administration. They planted the evidence, all sorts of accusations. And a lot of these accusations has taken root, especially with Trump supporters. They want to defund the FBI and they want to get rid of the FBI. And my question is, if we get rid of the FBI, who is going to hold politicians accountable for their criminal misdeeds? And the question is, nobody. And when you have no accountability, you have a dictatorship, someone who's free to do whatever they want as president. How about our justice system? Similarly, all these cases and lawsuits and criminal trials that are being held against Donald Trump. What is he? Same thing. We're weaponizing, this administration is weaponizing the Justice Department. The Justice Department is corrupt. We need to dismantle the Justice Department. You cannot trust the justice system in the United States because it is just corrupt and is being weaponized and politicized by the current administration. Again, if we don't have faith in our justice system within the United States, if we don't have faith in law enforcement, if we don't have in faith in our election system, what's left of our democracy? And so what you have is just paving the road for a dictator to take power. And what else do dictators do? Once they get into power, well, now they have to consolidate their power. And especially because, especially initially, they're going to have opposition. So what do? Well, you get to the point where you can use violence to eliminate your opposition. But what has been most effective is creating an enemy to unite your country against. And I will argue, well, you had Hitler do it against the Jews in Germany. You have to unite. It's the reason for all of the problems here in this country is because of the Jews. Let's unite against the Jews. And he did that, unfortunately, very successfully. You have Iran, for example. Those dictators stay in power. Let's unite. Let's unite the country against Israel. Again, the Jews. Israel is our number one enemy. We have to develop nuclear weapons. They're the reason for our problems. Let's unite against these external threats against Israel and, of course, the United States who are out to get us. Look what happened in North Korea. What did North Korea do? Early dictators in their regime. They actually, again, to consolidate power, made South Korea the enemy. And in fact, it was North Korea who invaded South Korea, but got their population to believe that it was South Korea that invaded North Korea. And that they had to rally together to defend against these invaders. So again, through propaganda and misinformation, they actually lied to their population so that they could create a crisis to rally their population to defend against. And exactly this is what happens. I'll say part of this has happened with Donald Trump and the election fraud claims in 2020. But I would say he's also rallying people against a different enemy, or at least an additional enemy, and that is the immigrants. Why do you think Donald Trump, during his presidency and in recent memory, when he had opportunities to address immigration, he punted? He came up with excuses why we can't, two cases in particular, bipartisan legislation and agreement on how to address the immigration crisis that we're having. Especially with illegal immigrants and people showing up at our borders. You had one during his presidency where he promised to sign bipartisan legislation and then reneged on that promise. And here during his campaign, when two parties came together again to sign bipartisan legislation, Trump said, no, we can't do that. It's going to ruin my campaign. I'm making these immigrants enemies. I'm calling them inhuman. I want everyone in America to rally against these invaders of our country. We're being attacked. Again, playbook of the dictator. He's got to create an enemy for people to rally around. Because another reason why is because, number one, he's a narcissist. I think we can all agree that he's a narcissist. That's a typical characteristic of a dictator. But they're also very insecure. And so he doesn't have enough confidence in himself or his policies. He's got to demonize any opponents, and he's got to lie to people in order to get ahead and to win elections. The other characteristic is a dictator surrounds himself with like-minded people. Now, I have to admit, early in Trump's first term, only term, hopefully. I was very impressed with his cabinet picks. I thought it was brilliant, the procedure he went to choose the people in his cabinet. I thought they were fantastic picks, and especially myself working at the Pentagon. I thought General Mattis, a retired General Mattis, as Secretary of Defense, was a brilliant pick, and he was a fantastic leader for the department, one of the best that we've ever had. But when it came to Syria, and Trump wanted to pull out troops and abandon the Kurds and just leave them to fend for themselves after all that they had done for us to help fight ISIS in Syria, that move was absolutely reprehensible. And the General Mattis told Trump as much. Well, Trump didn't want to hear that. And it wasn't too long before General Mattis was forced to resign. So, and then after that, Trump then and multiple other cabinet members, all of a sudden, one by one, great picks dropping out of the cabinet. and being replaced by Trump loyalists. Obviously, people that would surround Trump and tell Trump what he wanted to hear. Again, very, very typical of a dictator, and also very, very dangerous for the citizens of the country. The other thing too, especially in the Hitler video, that I found very fascinating is that toward the end of Hitler's regime, he became very, very distant and very, very uninterested in the affairs of the country. He was really not interested in running the country because he was at that time, I guess, suffering from isolation and paranoia and all sorts of things. And I found it quite interesting because my experience at the Pentagon after the 2020 election, when Trump was going around the country crying the blues about how he lost the election and it wasn't his fault and it was all whatever, a conspiracy against him. We in the Pentagon, again, this is the December timeframe, November-December timeframe. That is a very, very important time frame in the development of the budget that is due to be reported or submitted to Congress the following February. And we could not get the president's attention to make decisions. There were some important funding decisions that we needed to make for the Department of Defense. And we needed that president's input in order to know what to budget and what to put in the budget for the at that time would have been the 2022 budget that they would have been working on in February of 2021 when it gets submitted. And so I was like, that really just hit home with me. I'm like, oh my goodness, this man had no desire to do anything but go around the country and complain about the election, and to hell with the country and to hell with what happens, because that's not important now. What's important is me, Donald Trump, and me whining and crying about a stolen election. And that again, that just really hit home with me. And I'm like, this is just exactly what was happening during that time frame. You could not get the president's attention for any of the to do his job, basically. And then the final point I will make, and this is a quote that I believe was made by Hitler. And this I want everyone to think about, especially those of you who are hardline Trump supporters and are believing all of the lies about a stolen election and weaponizing of the FBI and the Justice Department. And that is, the more sensational the accusation, the more sensational the lie, the more the public will be willing to believe it. So I will leave you with that. And again, that is my case for why I believe that Donald Trump already is a dictator. And just, okay, one more thing. One more thing I want to leave you with. Think of what will happen if Donald Trump is successful in postponing his current trials until after the election. And think of what will happen if Donald Trump gets elected. He will have the power to make most, if not all, of those cases against him go away. You will have a person who will have proven that he is above the law, that he is untouchable, that he can do whatever he wants with impunity. And considering this man's personality, is that what you want to risk happening in this election? Because I can guarantee you, many of the statements that people just say, oh, he's exaggerating, he's just lying, I can tell you he is not. And he will ruin this country. He already has helped ruin this country. He has not made America great again. He has divided America, and a divided nation cannot stand. So that I will leave you with. I thank you for listening to me. I hope I gave you something to think about. And again, KLBJ, if you want to talk, if you want to have a civil discussion, if you'd like to refute any of what I said, I'd love to have a conversation with you. But please, stop the name calling and stop impugning my motives as being some sort of radical garbage. Anyway, thanks again.